Let's talk Amelia Perez
Okay,
with my
let's-
Ohio accent. Amelia Perez. This is a difficult movie to explain,
Yes.
which is part of what makes it wonderful. Aside from working with Jacques Audiard, why were you drawn to this role? Why'd you want to do this?
I found it incredibly compelling. And to be honest, I've never really seen a movie like this before. And knowing that I would obviously have the opportunity to work with Jacques, I thought he would be the only one that could make this the right way. So there was a lot of trust, because this could have gone in any direction. We deal with important subject matters in this movie, and it needed to be told in a way that would make sense and would give it justice. And I think he did a good job.
Were you a little nervous or even scared going into it?
No. Once I met Carla, who is the lead of this movie, she plays Amelia, I felt an immediate relief. I felt like we were in the hands of someone that understood a journey, that understood things that I've never experienced in my life. And she was beautiful and bold and brave, and she just knew what she wanted, and she would give us 150 of her performance, and we would have to meet her there. And I think that made me feel better about what we were making.
What was it like for you on a day-to-day basis to shoot this? Like at the end of a shooting day, what were you like? What were you feeling?
Usually a little sore from the dance numbers, but I was very happy. I mean, this whole experience was really transformative for me, and I felt, we lived in Paris for a while we shot it, and the people I was around, I couldn't have been luckier with their support and their wisdom. It just felt so right. So I don't think I've ever been this proud of something in the acting field.
Really?
Yes.
Why do you say that?
Because this story is original, but it's also a story that a lot of people walk through. So the way it was told was artistic and audacious and beautiful, but it is a true element where people crave and have a desire to live their life authentically, and whatever that looks like to them should never be judged. And I thought that we did a good job encompassing that.
There are such powerful, important messages in this film, and yet at the same time, there's a lightness to it because of the music and the dancing. Mm-hmm. Did you feel that doing it? It's like this tug of this darkness and then this beautiful light.
Yes, and I think that was really special to play with. There's one song I sing called Mi Camino, and it was actually so therapeutic for me to sing. It's basically in English translated to, if I fall off this hill, it's my hill. If I decide to do this with my life, it's my decision. And embracing womanhood, if you will. And I really appreciated that. Also, when I read the script, my character came across quite harsh in the beginning. Jacques was really wonderful with collaborating with me, because I felt like adding a bit of softness to her would help. So there are these moments in the movie where you can take a deep breath and enjoy the ride, and then it brings you right back up to where the stakes are high.
There have been a lot of headlines recently about, very enthusiastic headlines about your net worth. And I know you don't like to talk about money, but I bring it up because it's remarkable, especially come from money at all.
Yes.
Is it surreal in a way?
I don't know. I'm going to give all this credit to my mom. My mom's never cared about the materialistic of what I do. She's always cared about the art. And to be honest, I'm just grateful that the choices I've made have embraced people that people have felt seen and people feel like they can connect to something real and contribute to, if it is rare beauty, to the mental health fund. With every purchase, they buy, a percentage goes to our mental health fund. And I think those are the main key focuses for me. I don't care about anything else. I hope if there's anything anyone can take away is that don't let anyone tell you you can't do something, because that's not how it works. You want a little rejection in order to feel the urge to get to that place where you can say, I can do this. And if anything, that would be a message I would love for people to take away from, because that's all I did. I've had people look at me when I was 11 and said I would never be strong enough to carry my own show, and 3 years later I did Wizards of Waverly Place.
So there were times that people told you, oh, you can't do
Absolutely. That. Yeah, absolutely. But I felt like the rejection fueled me a bit. Doesn't mean it didn't hurt, but it did fuel me in a way, and I tried to just think to myself, well, maybe just that one person thinks that. There has to be other people that see something that I know I could do.
Did that happen time and time again? You mentioned when you were 11, people said, oh, you can't have your own show. Mm-hmm. Did that happen in other times in your life where people said, oh, you can't?
It's not necessarily as harsh anymore, but, I'll be honest with you, the element of, and I hate using this word, but of fame sometimes has blocked me from things that I really desire to do. Not so much anymore, but what I mean by that is directors may not be able to separate who I am versus this is a character I'm willing to transform to be, and I will give it my all.
So do you feel like maybe you lost out on certain parts because of the fame?
No, because my mom always told me ever since I was younger, when anyone would tell me no or I didn't get the part, she would always say to me, that wasn't for you. That was for someone else, and you should be happy for them, because one day it will be for you. And eventually that happened for me, and I carry that with me to this day. If it's not for me, it's not for me.
It sounds like, just reading about your childhood, that you and your mom were a dynamic duo.
Yeah.
But you struggled.
Mm-hmm.
Do you remember the times when it was tough to make ends meet, to put food on the table?
Of course. My mom worked multiple jobs. She also was finishing high school when she was having me. There was a lot of different elements that came into our life that were complicated, but I don't think either one of us would go back and change a thing. I think the moments that have happened will stay with me forever. But when I'm doing something great today, it just makes me more thankful for the lessons that my mother taught me. And it's kept me sane through this insane industry.
What's kept you sane?
The truth, which is I'm not bigger, I'm not better, I'm not smaller than anyone. We are all people. We all feel, we all understand what grief, loss, pain may feel like, and nothing can separate us from the mutual understanding of human life, of how life can just take you in a million different directions. And if anything, she's instilled hope in me.
Hope?
Yes.
You've talked about how there were times that you guys were going through the couch cushions looking for quarters?
Yes. Well, it only happened 3 times. Sorry, Mom, to blast you, but just one story brief. We were on the highway and we ran out of gas, so we pulled over. And I remember being, I'm sure I was maybe 5, and we were looking for, just some change that we could make for gas. And here's the thing, my mom never made me feel like it was a bad thing. My mom made me feel like we had the world, and we were very lucky to do that. And sometimes it looked differently than maybe people I grew up around, having a bit more of a privileged, or just a different life than me, I should say. And those moments I look back at not with pain, but with proudness, knowing me and my mom definitely went through it, but we're really grateful for where we are.
It sounds like she almost made it seem like it was an adventure rather than, oh, we should worry about this. Is that true?
It's actually true. My mom always thought life was bigger than where we grew up. You know, we tried to explore different places, and she was very open to life in general. And she showed me that there is a life bigger than just being a girl from Texas, which I'm very proud of being, but it is lovely to have someone that wanted more for me.
That's wonderful. So you were on TV from the age of 10?
7.
7? Oh my goodness. Can you even explain what it's like to have the eyes of the world on you from the time you're 7 years old?
I don't think I really thought about much of the opinion of others until I was older. There's an innocence about children that I admire, in the sense of my little sister is completely enjoying every aspect of her life, and not one person's comment can affect what she feels. Now she doesn't have to deal with it on the scale that I do, but she inspires me, and she's 11. It wasn't till I was older that I realized people started to hurt my feelings, and sometimes I could believe it. And then I'd say over the past few years, it's not necessarily that it bothers me, it's more so the injustice of what people in society expect out of women. And I think for myself, speaking personally, there is never going to be a time where I won't stand up for women or any community that I believe in. I don't care if people think that, maybe that's, oh, why'd she comment or why'd she say something? I don't really care, because for me it's my voice, and I will use it however I please.
Was there a moment when you said, you know what, I'm not going to care about what people think or what people say about me?
I think I feel that way now. I think it's more just an injustice of what we have to experience as women, and it's very complex and could be difficult, and fortunately it might be more difficult. And I think for myself, I really have to take breaks. I think that's what's necessary, taking breaks from social media completely. Honest to God, I don't know the last time I've really Googled. It's just social media can be a very dangerous place, because anything you can just see in a blink of an eye. And that can be a little scary, and I feel for the younger generation deeply, because this does affect people, and especially younger audiences. And I try my hardest to encourage people to realize that their whole life is not right here. Their whole life is when you put the phone down and you see everything else.
It's so important for you to say, because you have a huge following on social media, and yet you're saying, this is not it, folks.
No. I mean, I post my highlights, and I'm very grateful for them. But that isn't what life is about. There's a whole world that wants you, and there's a whole world to explore, even if it's just taking one day off of it and taking a walk. It doesn't have to be grandiose. It can be something that's simple.
And you made a point of taking breaks from social media, saying, that's it, I'm stepping away.
Definitely. And if anything, I just hope it encourages people to maybe do the same thing. Again, it doesn't have to be dire. It can be something as simple as taking 3 hours away from it. I care deeply about mental health, and I care deeply about our youth. And my sister's 11, and my generation younger than me. And sometimes I want to encourage people to understand that life is beautiful, and all of the words are just words. But it does, it worries me that I think so many young children, do have to face a lot of harsh things.
it makes sense that it worries you since you're so involved in mental health.
Yes.
If you can talk a little bit about that journey. You released this documentary, My Mind and Me, which I think should be required viewing for people, especially journalists, actually.
Thank you.
But everybody. But you are powerfully vulnerable in that movie. Were you nervous about sharing that with the world?
A little bit. Yeah. I think I was nervous only because I didn't know if it was the right move. Maybe people would judge me, people would think I was crazy, people wouldn't understand me. All of those questions raise and pop in your head. And once I released it, it felt like a huge relief, because I am a firm believer that one of the strongest things you can do is be vulnerable. And that doesn't mean you have to, pour your heart out to everyone. But I made that choice because I knew I wasn't the only one that felt that way. And if my world was already out there for everyone to see, I'd like to tell my part of the story. And I'm very proud of that. Now, what I do want to say is that that was a time period in my life of 6 years. I am beyond thrilled and happy that I still have my day, but I feel more in control of where I'm headed and my feelings towards just life. And I think it's safe to say, I am the happiest I've definitely been, but also equally it's a journey and I'm enjoying it. And I definitely say your 30s are fun because you gotta care a little less about things.
You say you're happiest now? Why is that?
I'm so grateful for my family and their health and their safety. And to add on that, it's a dream what I'm doing. I'm not good with, compliments, but small things make me the happiest. Like being able to do a reboot of Wizards of Waverly Place, which was the show I was on when I was a kid. Those are the moments that make me proud and they make me happy. And then obviously in my personal life, I surround myself with really beautiful, wonderful people. And it doesn't mean it's a lot of people. It can be a handful, but they make me feel seen and they make me feel accepted.
That's beautiful. I want to talk about your television success for a moment. Only Murders has done incredibly well. How has working with Martin Short and Steve Martin changed how you look at the world?
In every way. These men, Steve and Marty, have been working longer than I've been alive, but they are the first ones to be on set. They are on time, they are professional, they are class acts. Their humor isn't harsh and crude, it's smart and wise. They take time to ask everyone they run into how their day is. And on top of it, they think everything through. They're also in a point in their life where their perspective actually means a lot. Little things I worry about from, oh gosh, I wish I didn't say that one time and something. And they simplify things for me. There's nothing specific that they have said to me. It's simply by how they are. They are wonderful people and they care deeply about what they do. And they've helped me grow up in a lot of ways. And, it's been 4 years that these guys have become my friends and allies and people I can ask advice from. I couldn't be more grateful to work with them.
Do they give you advice on things like relationships?
Yeah, but they're also very casual. Their advice is almost simplified in a way where you think, oh yeah, I should have thought of that. Like overthinking situations or sending a message or thinking this, and they'll just remind me for 5 seconds. They'll just say, it's just a text. It's okay. Nothing's gonna happen. and I'm like, oh, you're right. This is normal, and what I'm feeling is normal. So they're always there for me.
That's great. Kind of the wisdom of perspective.
Yes, and I appreciate it.
You talked a bit about your personal life, so I'm just going to ask a tiny bit about one of the sexiest men alive in People magazine.
Yeah, that's my man.
What'd you think when you heard that?
You know, it was very charming. I think for me, I am beyond proud to know that there is someone in the world that deeply cares about every tiny detail about who I am. And to have someone support me, encourage me, inspire me, and motivate me, it brings me a joy. And more than anything, he's just my best friend. And I'm really, really lucky. So, yeah.
When you talk about details, I work with my husband, and he, when I was pregnant, would make me In-N-Out burgers. We lived in New York City, and so he did the imitation In-N-Out burgers because we couldn't get them in New York.
Good.
When Benny was talking about how he makes you homemade Taco Bell, is that not the most romantic? I'm sorry.
Is it romantic?
Yes. Talk about the details.
He is very, very sweet. I think for me, he makes, it's almost like he'll just make me these treats because it gives him joy. And, you know, of course, Mexican pizza and Taco Bell is one of my favorites. But, you know, it's also nice to have someone that can, you know, cook and teach me. And it's just, it's been the best.
You have all this incredible singing success, hit after hit after hit, and yet I heard you fairly recently tell someone, oh, I don't think I'm the best singer.
Yeah, that's true.
You don't, what do you mean?
I think that I'm great at storytelling. I think ballads are my strong point, and I think it's important to understand where my strong points are and to, you know, develop a skill in a way where I'm still learning about my voice. My voice changes, but I truly believe that I can convey a story through my voice, and I'm very proud of it. It doesn't necessarily define anyone as a better singer or a worse singer than me. I don't view it that way. I think everyone has their strengths, and I'm a huge fan of following all of like the powerful women in music who have their own individual style. And I would just say that I have my own style as well. But I think that was simply said not in a negative way. It was just more, this is where I feel I'm best at, and that's okay.
What does songwriting do for you?
Songwriting is very cathartic. It feels really nice to be able to express whatever emotion I'm feeling, but also have wonderful co-writers that can help me interpret that. It's usually just a bunch of words and thoughts that I can't control, and then narrowing it down to create and craft a really beautiful song is like a complete high. You get so happy from creating something that is beautiful. And sometimes that's, you know, a day or 2 or 3 days of work, but one of my proudest moments as a songwriter was Lose You to Love Me, and that took 45 minutes.
45 minutes.
It was the fastest song I've ever written with Justin Tranter and Julia Michaels, and it was beautiful. It was haunting, and it was a huge release because music should be that for people. They should feel, hopefully, moved, compelled, and not alone. Again, I go back to that, but that's just because there's a lot of people out there that I don't want to ever look at my life and think that it's perfect, because, you know, everyone has something they go through.
So it's important for you to say, hey, I'm like you?
Yeah. I mean, of course. because I am. I don't think there's anything different. I just talk about having Taco Bell, the shoes I'm wearing, like cozy from Target. I love my life. I think people have misconceptions sometimes of
Like,
life of people in my position. But I give all that credit to my mom yet again. She just always made me realize that I am proud to be who I am and I should be.
you are intensely busy. And there's a part of me that feels bad because I know that this is probably not one of your favorite things to do the interview things, and I'm taking your time. But how do you handle those intensely busy times now?
I think how I handle busyness is actually pretty helpful for me. I think over the years I may have developed a bit of an addiction to my work, and I have had to learn to enjoy taking breaks.
Have you had to force yourself to take breaks?
I have. And they were a little uncomfortable. So, as exhausted as I may be, and maybe it's just a really rough day for me, the moment I need to take a seat and speak with someone, I do it because that's connection. And one of the most powerful things to me as a human is connecting with people. I think it's crucial, even if you're asking someone how their day is. I just think having connection is beautiful. So I'm able to show up. I'm able to do my part, and I respect you. I respect others who have a job to do, and I would want nothing more than to give you my attention and to give you everything that I have. And then when you say cut, I go back downstairs and sleep. So that's basically how I look at it.
That makes sense. I ask this of everyone, and it's a simple question, but I still think it's an important question. What are you most grateful for?
I am most grateful for my health and my safety. I'd probably put my family before me. Things come and go. Materialistic stuff is here one day, gone the next. But the most important thing in the world to me is making sure that the people I love, and that doesn't have to be my family, it can be many people I don't even know. I think for me, that's exactly what I'm grateful for, is hopefully bringing some sort of influence and safety to people.
That was my next question, is out of all the things you've done, can you center on one that you're most proud of?
I'm most proud of my consistency. And what I mean by that is that I feel I've always, just no matter how uncomfortable growing pains are, I have always tried, no matter, what anyone thinks. I have always tried to do my best. And even at my worst moments, dealing with things I happen to deal with, I always do what I can. And I think I'm very proud of the fact that I've been working this long, but I'm no different than the girl that I feel like I grew up to be. I love pranks, I love scary movies, I love Taco Bell. I still feel like I'm that girl, and nothing can take that away from me. And there's there's nothing wrong with, of course, every now and then you put on a pretty dress and you're like, okay, I like this. So I'm not, simply saying that's the only thing, but I think I'm definitely proud of my connection with my specific, community.
It's interesting that you say, you're still that girl.
Yeah.
And I was thinking about Wizards of Waverly Place and the sequel, and how you fully have embraced your Disney side, your Disney years. Yeah. Not every kid who came from Disney has done that. Why do you think you're so comfortable with it?
I think everybody has their own journey. And I think that I completely respect and understand how overwhelming it can be to be on something that is, pretty, it's a big platform, I should say. And when you're younger, I'm not going to lie, when I hit 18, I thought, okay, well, I'm desperate to do something different. I'm excited to maybe not be always associated with it. However, it never meant I was upset with what it gave me. I think that I couldn't have asked for a better upbringing than being on that set. And that was because all of those people knew me before anything happened, and they loved me unconditionally. They taught me so much about comedy and life and family, and I will always be grateful for that. But of course, there was a period in my life that I think it wasn't that I was upset with Disney, it was just the misconception of that's all I could do. And then once I realized that I can break those barriers, and I've tried my whole career to do that, why wouldn't I honor something that gave me all of this in the beginning? And it brings me so much joy to be able to bring it back to a whole new audience, but also, give a little shout out to, the crowd that grew up with me.
Health-wise, you shared with the world
Yes.
that you have lupus,
Yes.
that you had a kidney transplant.
Yes.
Is that something that you deal with on a daily basis? How does that affect you day to day?
I am very fortunate. At the moment, my lupus is in remission. I'm very grateful for that. However, I tend to get very tired easily. Sometimes my mind is thinking faster than my body, so once it catches up, I think understanding that it's okay to be a little bit more protective of my, time alone, even when it's just silence. I appreciate that. I think whenever I think about my lupus, it's something that I'll forever have. It affected every part of me, and I am, beyond humbled by the doctors and so many specialists that I was able to see, and what I would want the whole world to have, which is a true blessing. And they were helpful, and now it's in remission, and I'm very grateful. But it doesn't mean, it's not gonna come back. It's just something I live with, and I'm okay with that.
It's a good way to look at it.
Yeah.
Yeah. Going back to Amelia Perez, you talked about the singing and dancing scenes a little bit, but I'm wondering, just giving your background for the singing and dancing scenes, were you thinking, I got this?
No.
No.
No, simply because it was a choice. I could not be the pop singer. It wasn't, that wouldn't have made sense to the story to me. And I had never quite, frankly, danced in a manner that was interpretive and aggressive and fun and vibrant, and that was a whole new experience for me. I mean, I was moving my body in ways like flipping my head, and it was a blast. I got to learn a lot from that. So I had to leave behind what I'm used to and just kind of succumb to Jessie, my character, and really let loose that way.
For those really emotional scenes, there's a scene where you're left. What did you draw on for those?
I actually felt really safe with the other actresses. And Edgar, who was one of the actors in the film, they all allowed me to talk to them about where I felt I should go. Meaning, leaving home was a good example. I had to leave my family in Texas to come and pursue what I wanted to do. And that was one of the hardest things that I've ever done in my life. I luckily have convinced most of them to move here now, but still a few I gotta get. I just think that that's what I was thinking of in that specific scene, where I knew this was my dream and my goal, and I was willing to just fight as hard as I could for this. But it was at the expense of, not necessarily seeing my family every day. But I see them now. I can see that it's okay to pursue something that you want to do. If that looks different, it scares you, that usually means you're onto something great.
But that must have been really scary because you were young, and to strike out kind of on your own.
Yeah, and being 13 is already such a interesting age, and puberty and going through life. So I'll never forget that moment. But that's actually specifically what I kind of drew from when I was doing that specific scene.
That feeling of being alone.
Yeah, just saying bye to what you're used to.
You've had so much singing success, but is acting your first love?
I think that a lot of what I've said about both can be a little confusing. Yes, when I was younger, I truly had a passion and a love for TV and film that just made me eager to want to do it. My mother was a theater actress, so she would do a lot of plays. I never got the experience of going to a lot of, shows growing up, but watching her was everything to me. And I think that's when I got the bug. It was never her pushing me to say, don't you want to do this? It was, if anything, it was her going, are you sure you want to do this? But I loved it. But music became something that was just a part of me. It was a way of expression. It was a way for me to stay above water sometimes when I felt like, okay, I'm losing out on maybe a few acting opportunities, but being able to tell my story from Who Says The Heart Wants What It Wants to Lose You to Love Me, I'll never regret those moments in time. So I think it's a little confusing. And
You're allowed to love both.
I am allowed to love both. And I think when I take breaks from one or the other, people can maybe misconstrue that as me not caring about it. But I love both deeply, and I think there's always time for each of them in the right moment, and that's what I'm figuring out.
You talked in the documentary, and I've heard you say this before, that for so long other people told your story, and you want to be able to tell your own story.
Right.
So it's hard to sum it up in a few words.
Sure.
But if you could, what is the Selena Gomez story?
It is pretty similar to a lot of what people walk through. It's like kind of a hard question because you're right, it is weird to sum it up, but I think that for myself personally, I want to live my life authentically. And people narrating my life that, especially in moments where there's no truth behind it, really makes me want to stand up for myself. And I think taking control of that, saying, okay, you're not going to shame me for going through a difficult time. I'm going to hopefully stand up and say, yeah, I'm not doing that great, but I'm okay, and I'm going to get through it, and I'm going to do all the steps necessary to get through it. And that was my journey. My journey has always been trying to show up, trying to always explore life, and my mental health is everything to me, and I think it's one of the most crucial subject matters that sometimes we ignore, and it's very prevalent, and I will always be a fighter for those rights, for people to have a better place and a safer place to say, hey, I might need some help right now.
You shared your bipolar diagnosis with the world at a time when a lot of people weren't talking about that.
Right.
Might not have even understood what it meant.
And I think that was okay for me. I I'm not sure I need anyone to understand, but I know that there are millions of people that do, even if they're not sure. Because for the longest time, I wasn't quite understanding of my emotions, and trying to figure that out was very confusing. At times, it was hurtful. It would be really sad. But once I realized and had the knowledge of what was happening to me, it actually made me feel so much better.
To have a diagnosis.
To have a diagnosis. It made me have a whole level of compassion for myself that I never had before. That I would be upset with myself for being sad. I'd be upset that I wasn't as happy as other people. And then when I was able to work with people and figure out what that looked like, and it came out with, came up to being bipolar, I didn't find that scary. Did I think people would judge that? Of course. Unfortunately, people still don't understand it. But I'm not going to be someone to stay silent on it. I'm going to always be someone that is proud of doing everything I can to make sure, especially a younger generation and mine, they're going to pave the way for the future. And this is something they care about. And if we miss this opportunity, it could be detrimental. These kids need our help. And I will do everything I can to always be vocal about this and care about it.
And the truth is, while some people might not have understood,
Yeah.
I mean, the reaction in general has been overwhelmingly positive, hasn't it?
Sure, maybe.
Maybe.
It's not that I really need anyone's approval. I think I'm okay with where I am and who I am, and I'm glad. I'm glad that I finally got there.
Anything else you want to say while we're
Just
sitting?
thank you for being amazing.
Thank you.